I just wanted to say thanks everyone for joining. Of what the Chamber offers the community is the ability to connect with other people in the business community, especially connecting with experts who can help in times such as these. So we actively work with Community Futures Thompson Country throughout the year on a variety of different projects, and even more so now in this time of crisis. And we're really happy to have Carmen, Julie, and Blair on the line today from Community Futures. So it's my understanding that they will help with your applications. And so when you're applying, if you have any questions, if there's things that you're unsure about, reach out to them. They're a resource for you in the community. And that's what we're doing at the Chamber. Like when we're reaching out to our members, if we hear from people that need access, we're giving them a direct referral to Community Futures, because there's no point in everyone trying to do that. And Community Futures knows how to navigate the government forms and programs really, really well. So they're the experts to help you do it. So without further ado, please welcome our community partner from Community Futures Thompson Country, General Manager Blair Gray and Program Manager Julie Bayman, who will be providing this seminar to help you get the support you need from the federal and provincial government emergency response packages as you tackle uncertainty. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Acacia. Yeah, like Acacia said, at Community Futures, we're very happy to be trying to help all businesses apply for a variety of different federal programs that have been rolled out. I don't think any were announced this morning, so hopefully we've got them all in our presentation that we're aware of right now. I think Julie's going to share her screen, and we'll just kind of dive into the different supports that are out there. We didn't put every single one in here because there are so many of them, but we did put the ones in that we thought would probably be the most beneficial for business owners, and kind of cast the broadest net as far as supports that are out there. And then also saying that we're very aware that not all business owners will be eligible for any of the supports necessarily that have been announced. And if that is the case, we very much want to hear that feedback. And I'm sure Acacia and Deanna at the Chamber want to hear that as well. So we can put that up through our federal networks to let them know that there's still businesses that aren't being offered supports right now to help you with your business during the pandemic. So I guess, Julie, I kind of have to ask you to go to the next slide. I'm going to go through some of the first slides, and then Julie will get into some of the programs listed on the bottom there. So I'm going to be talking about avoiding layoffs and rehiring employees, some of your different options for accessing credit, potentially creating new jobs and opportunities for youth, and deferred payments. Okay, so one of the main ones that we've seen, and it's timely as the application portal was just launched yesterday, so you are able to apply for the wage subsidy now. So this provides a 75% wage subsidy to eligible employers for up to 12 weeks. That, of course, is retroactive to March 15th, 2020. Just to touch on the eligibility for employers, you can be an individual, a taxable corporation, partnership, consisting of eligible employers, nonprofits, organizations, and charities. So to be eligible in March, you had to see a decrease of revenue of 15%, and then for April and May, it would be 30%. Again, the subsidy is 75% up to a maximum of $847 per week per staff person. And then how to apply, as I just said, they've launched their business account portal through the CRA, and you can access that through canada.ca as well. So if you're unsure of how to get there, it's canada.ca or the CRA website. Thanks, Julie. So I kind of just touched on this, but one key thing to keep in mind if you're trying to figure out if you are eligible for the wage subsidy is there's two different ways of comparing your revenue reduction. So it could be the month compared to the current month, or the month from in 2020 compared to the one in 2019, or if you're a new business or if your revenue is down in January and February of 2020, you could compare it to those months as well. So it's important if you're maybe not below 30% from last year, make sure to compare it for January and February of this year as well, because that might make you eligible. And just because you're not eligible for one period doesn't mean you might not be eligible for another one. So make sure to check for all three of them if you're unsure. So we're going to go through some examples here just to kind of go through the math. There's also examples on canada.ca. And when you actually go to apply through the portal, there is a template that will do all of this for you. So it does kind of walk you through the steps, but we've found that it's beneficial just to look at a few different scenarios, especially ones for corporations where you might actually be taking wage out of the business. So I'll just read through here. So Debbie and John own a corporation that operates an automobile repair shop in BC. They're working full-time, each drawing a salary of $1,300 per week, and have 3 part-time employees, each earning $800 per week for a total payroll of $5,000. They have reduced their opening hours to decrease demand due to their services. They initially laid off all of their employees, but they have now decided to rehire them following the announcement of the CEWS. Their employees are not being asked to report to work during this period. That's in this example, a lot of places do have their employees reporting to work. It's eligible either way. So Debbie and John are now keeping their employees on payroll, paying them 75% of their pre-crisis salary, so $600 per week. Debbie and John would be eligible for a weekly wage subsidy of $3,494. So that's $847 for each of themselves because they are taking a wage out of the business, and then $600 for each of their employees. So Debbie and John would be eligible for 100% refund of their employer-paid contributions to employment insurance and the CPP Canada Pension Plan. So in respect of their employees, providing an additional benefit of up to $124 per week. At the end of each claiming period, Debbie and John would submit an application through the CRA portal attesting that their decline in revenue in each month is sufficient to qualify. When compared to the average of January and February, or again, the past fiscal year's month, they would also report their total remuneration paid to themselves and their furloughed employees during the month. Go to the, yep. So another important thing to keep in mind, for certain employer paid contributions to employment insurance in the Canada Pension Plan, 100% are eligible for employees who are on leave with pay and for which the employer is eligible to claim for the CEWS for these employees. So another benefit that I'm not sure that everyone's aware of that there is expanded eligibility for is the temporary 10% wage subsidy. So this started in mid-March as well and is for 3 months. And it's basically, it's eligible for any operating business, individual partnership, nonprofit organization, registered charity, Canadian controlled private corporation. So really you just had to be in operation as of March 18th and had a payroll program account with the CRA as of that date to be eligible for this 10% wage subsidy. So in talking to some of the businesses that we know in the community, they were not aware of this. They were aware of the 75%, but not aware of the 10%. And you can access both. They will just integrate the 10% into the 75%. So just gonna go through a couple more examples with the 10% wage subsidy. So eligible employers will be able to reduce the amount of payroll deduction up to $1,375 for each eligible employee to a maximum of $25,000 total per employer to be remitted to the CRA. So it's important to note you cannot reduce your remittances of CPP contributions or EI premiums. You must continue remitting the CPP contributions and EI premiums that you deducted from your employees, as well as your share of CPP contributions and EI premiums to the CRA. So here's an example. If you deducted $2,500 of income tax from your employee's pay and calculated a subsidy of $2,050, you would reduce the current payroll remittance of federal, provincial, or territorial income tax by $2,050. You would remit $450 of income tax to the CRA. The remaining $2,050 you would keep and that would represent your subsidy through this program. Again, just continuing with the example, so you pay 5 eligible employees monthly salaries of $4,100 for a total monthly payroll of $20,500. Your wage subsidy for the month will be 10%, so that's $2,050. For the 3-month period, if all of your payroll information remains the same in each month, you pay a total of $61,500 of remuneration. Therefore, 10% of the remuneration you pay in the 3-month period is $6,150. Since this amount is below the maximum allowable amount of $6,875, your total wage subsidy for the 3-month period will be $6,150. So obviously this can cut a million different ways depending on what your wages are for your business, but the example, the math would basically stay the same. And again, if you want some help walking through your own circumstance with something like this, just give us a call and we can definitely do that with you. So moving on to some different benefits that they've provided. So deferring income tax. This is allowing all businesses to defer until after August 31st, 2020. Payment of any income tax amounts that become owing on or after March 18th and before September 20. There's no interest or penalties will accumulate on these amounts during the deferred period of time. Sticking with deferred payments, so GST businesses, including self-employed individuals, are allowed to defer until June 30th. Payments of their GST as well as customs duty owing on their imports. Any GST payment that becomes owing from March 27th until the end of May can be deferred until the end of June. For GST and customs duty payments for imported goods, deferral will include amounts owing for March, April, and May. So this is a brand new subsidy that's been announced, and it's a partnership with the federal government and the provincial government. So I think it's actually going to be rolled out through the province. What I just read this morning is it's going to be available hopefully by mid-May, but it will cover off rent assistance for the months of April, May, and June. The idea is that the program will lower your rent by 75% for small businesses that have been affected by COVID-19. Program will provide forgivable loans to qualified commercial property owners to cover 50% of that rent. 3 monthly rent payments that are payable by eligible small business tenants who are experiencing financial hardship for April, May, and June. The way that it's going to work is the loan will be forgiven if the mortgage property owner agrees to reduce the small business tenant's rent by at least 75% under a rent forgiveness agreement, which will include a term not to evict the tenant while the agreement is in place. The tenant would cover the remainder up to 25% of the rent. Impacted small business tenants are businesses paying less than $50,000 per month in rent and who have temporarily ceased operations or have experienced at least a 70% drop in pre-COVID revenues. And my understanding is that that will be judged the same way as the wage subsidy, either the previous fiscal year's revenue amount or January and February. Just kind of continuing with the rent assistance. So if you had a monthly rent for a small business that is $10,000, the landlord forgoes $2,500. Small business would be responsible for paying $2,500. And then there's a breakdown between the federal government and province. They would pay the remaining $5,000 with $3,750 coming from the feds and $1,250 coming from the province. As we just kind of touched on, to receive the loan, property owners will be required to reduce the rental costs of small business tenants for April to June by at least 75%. One thing I would say is if you are looking into the rental assistance program, make sure to get in contact with your landlord as soon as possible if you haven't already, to try and get that agreement in place for when this is launched. Okay, shifting a little bit now, we're moving over to different credit streams that are available to small businesses. So there's been a lot of different loan programs that have been initiated by the federal government and other agencies such as ourselves at Community Future. So we're just going to touch on some of the different options that are available there. So there's $40 billion of additional support that's gone through Business Development Bank of Canada and Export Development Canada. So there's loan guarantees for small and medium-sized enterprises. Export Development Canada is working with financial institutions to issue operating credit and cash flow terms. There's co-lending programs for small business and medium-sized enterprises. BDC is working with Financial Institute to co-lend term loans. The one that we would probably point to, yeah, go ahead and go to the next slide, Julie, thanks. The one that we would point people to investigate if they are looking for a small loan is this one, the Canada Emergency Business Account. So this is interest-free loans of up to $40,000 to small business and not-for-profits to help cover operating costs. Qualifications are fairly general. It's payroll of between 20,000 to 1.5 million in 2019. I know single operators wouldn't qualify for that, which is unfortunate because of the payroll amount. But the important part with this one is there is loan forgiveness of up to 25%. So 10,000 of that 40,000 is non-repayable if the rest of the loan is repaid by December 31st, 2022. So even if you weren't in a situation where COVID has been extremely detrimental, this would be worth looking into because you can keep $10,000 for your business without penalty. And just finally, there's been increased funding announced for rural business and communities specific to the Community Futures Network across Canada. So then the amount of $287 million is being provided to support rural businesses and communities by providing us more capital to loan. So with Community Futures, our loans are extremely flexible. We can really tailor them to suit your business needs. We can withhold payments and withhold and do interest-only payments for an extended period of time to get you through this crisis. So if you're interested in what loan programs we have, please give us a call as well. And we'll not only walk you through what loan programs we have, but the rest of them that are available and make sure that you get into the loan that is best suited for your business. With that, I think I'm now going to hand it over to Julie.
Thanks, Blair. Yes, so we're now going to look at support for youth. 20.1 million has been provided for Futurepreneur to continue supporting young entrepreneurs across Canada. The funding will allow Futurepreneur Canada to provide payment relief for its clients for up to 12 months. So if this is of interest, then we strongly suggest that you speak to Futurepreneur for further details. There is also additional funding assistance for innovative and early stage businesses, assisting innovative and early stage businesses, and small and medium-sized businesses unable to access other supports. We haven't spent a lot of time going through these options today because we wanted to focus on the most common programming that we felt that we would, that would be available to the people on the call today. So if you're interested and these fit your business profile, then please visit the canada.ca website for more information. Creating new jobs and opportunities for youth. They have also looked at youth employment and skills strategy. So there's 153 million for the youth employment and skills strategy to help youth develop the skills and gain the experience they need to successfully transition into the labor market. This funding is directly sort of targeted towards the high demand sectors such as agriculture, technology, health and essential services, creating over 6,000 additional job placements. The Student Work Placement Program, $80 million is being provided for the Student Work Placement Program to support up to 20,000 post-secondary students across Canada to obtain paid work experience related to their field of study. And the Canada Summer Jobs Program, if you've actually applied to have a Canada summer student for the summer period, we believe that this would be the people that would qualify for this. They're now providing 100% of the provincial or territorial minimum hourly wage for each employee. They're extending the end date for employment, so you can now have your summer student till February 28th, 2021. And you're allowed to adapt the projects and job activities to suit the current environment that we're living in. And you can hire staff on a part-time basis. The other support is the CERB, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, and this is a taxable benefit of $2,000 every 4 weeks for up to 16 weeks. Eligibility is for workers and self-employed. You need to live in Canada and at least 15 years old. You must have stopped working because of COVID-19, or eligible for EI or sickness, have not voluntarily quit your job, and had income of at least $5,000 in 2019 or in the 12 months prior to the date of your application. On April 15th, they expanded this support to allow you to make up to $1,000 per month while you're collecting the CERB. They've extended the CERB to seasonal workers who have exhausted their EI benefits and unable to undertake their regular seasonal work because of COVID-19, and extended the CERB to workers who have recently exhausted their EI and are unable to find a job because of COVID-19. Supports for self-employed individuals, more time to pay income taxes. So businesses can defer until August 31st, 2020, the payment of any income tax amounts that becomes owing on or after March 18th and before September 2020. Indigenous businesses, $306.8 million has been provided to help small and medium-sized Indigenous businesses and to support the Aboriginal financial institutes that offer financing to these businesses. Funding will allow for short-term interest-free loans and non-payable contributions through Aboriginal financial institutions, which offer financing and business support services to First Nations, Inuit and Métis businesses. These measures will help 6,000 Indigenous owned businesses get through these difficult times. There's also support for specific sectors, and again, we haven't spent a ton of time targeting directly into these subsections, but if you feel that you may fit into one of these categories, again, we strongly suggest you either reach out to Community Futures and we can certainly assist you one-on-one, or tap into that canada.ca website to get more details. So agriculture, agri-food, aquaculture, fisheries, cultural heritage and sports, air transportation, tourism, energy, non-profit and charitable. Wow, we did well, Blair. We got through that in half an hour. So any questions? Deanna, are you able to open up the chat for us to see any questions?
Yeah, we don't have any questions in the chat right now, so
I have a few.
Beautiful.
Just in regards to demonstrating your loss in revenue, will you have to compare to the same, like if you pick January, February for March, are you going to have to pick that for April as well? You can't go back to April 2019? Like once you commit to either going to, okay.
Yeah, you have to pick whichever one you're comparing to, and then you have to stick to that for as your reference for the following periods.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know if they're opening up applications for the Canada Summer Jobs like anymore? Because I had heard that the applications, you had to reach out to Kathy McLeod's office by a couple weeks ago, and I'm wondering if they're going to reopen it for more.
There's no mention of that at this point, Acacia, that we can see. It points to the fact that it's only the people who had previously applied with the current end date of application.
Okay.
But I'm more willing to look into that.
Well, yeah, just from a chamber operational perspective, like I could probably handle taking a student on part-time to do some really good quality work. which
Yeah.
would be a fantastic opportunity for a business student or a research student. So yeah, if you hear anything more about it, I'd love to take a look.
Yeah. Okay. It's on my list.
I see Judy has a question here. How does one apply for the CERB, and is CERB retroactive to March 15th as well?
Yes, and you would apply on the canada.ca website. Is that correct, Blair? I think once you go into that site, you will see there's two options: support for individuals, support for businesses. Oh, there's also support for sectors. So if you would go to support for individuals, and then it's going to ask you, are you employed or are you self-employed? So it will either take you to Service Canada, I believe, or to
CRA.
So of course, if you're saying that you're employed, then they're going to want to see information on an ROE. And then if you're over to CRA as self-employed, that's a completely separate application. I believe they are still implementing you can apply on the day that's been allocated for the month of your birthday. So
yeah, so when you log in or attempt to log in through the CRA, they're still wanting you to log in as of your birth date. So I think it's like January, February, March is Monday, and then it goes on through the week for your birth month. So that's how they're slowing people down. You might be able to log in now that the traffic has slowed down, but I still saw that they were saying they're going through that process.
Just another piece around that as well is that you can't be accessing, as an employee, you can't be accessing CERB and the wage subsidy as well. So you have to pick one or the other. So if you are going back to work or you have employees coming back, they can't be on CERB and accessing the wage subsidy program as well, because that will put them in an overpayment situation.
And then in that case, you would just advise that they withhold one of the payments to pay back, right?
Yeah, that's what they've said, is basically hold on to those funds and you'll probably be paying them back at tax time.
Because the same thing happened when they initially launched CERB. People who had applied for EI and then didn't know, and then also applied for CERB, ended up getting two payments. Yeah, so it's just good to know, because some people don't know that, and then they end up spending more of that money and then may find themselves in a tricky situation. There's another question in the chat here from Roberta, Eat Clean, Express, and Meal Prep. Blair, do you see that one there?
Yeah, I do. So Roberta's just asking, I opened my doors for businesses February 18th, 2020. Will the federal government allow me to use these 2 weeks as a baseline for my average January, February revenues for CBA? I can't commit to that answer one way or the other. I would think that they might, especially that the March payment is based on basically from March 15th onwards. So it's basically similar time frame. So I would attempt to apply if you're wanting to apply, and they might engage you on that specifically, Roberta.
What I've heard from just different calls that I've been on is that the government, they recognize that not everyone's going to fit in these programs, but the intent of them is for as many people to get the support that they need. And so if you believe that you may be close to eligible or unsure, better to apply and just find out than to prolong wondering. Because they'll just either tell you no, or they'll tell you what eligibility they're looking for, or they may just push you through, right? Yeah. So I think if you're unsure, give Community Futures a call and then put an application through.
Yeah, good advice.
I had a question around the commercial rents, and I know that there's not a lot of information about that, but that agreement that they talk about between the landlord and the tenant, is that going to be provided by the government, or are landlords expected to come up with their own?
I haven't seen anything announced that that's going to be like a downloadable document that they're going to provide. It would have to come from the province, I would assume, and each province would have to do their own. So I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to have to come from the landlord. So that's why I was saying good to be proactive if you are wanting to apply for that and start that conversation now.
And I've heard a few cases in the community of landlords that are unwilling to look at those programs. So we need to hear about that. Both Community Futures and the Chamber do. We actually released a statement last week prior to the announcement just on that, encouraging commercial landlords to support their business tenants. But I think that just goes to the importance of reaching out to your landlord and have that conversation with them, right? So it's good that you guys covered that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that's very beneficial. I'm sure you've heard the same, that's the rent payments for businesses, especially ones that are closed, is very difficult during this circumstance. So I'm hoping landlords are understanding that even having to pay some rent themselves is better than not receiving anything for the current months.
Are there any other questions? So I'm not seeing any, and I think that maybe what we'll do, if you guys are okay with this, is we'll send your contact information out to the attendees. And I think, Deanna, we should send out that wage subsidy calculator link, just because you basically put in your information and then you're given the numbers that you need to input when you apply. So it's a really valuable tool to have. One thing that I just wanted to mention too is that our chamber network is advocating to the federal government to remove the payroll capacity or limits to the loan. We recognize that self-employed people are not covered under that, and that's a big portion of our membership that don't pay themselves through payroll. And so this is something we've been really advocating for. There's no clarity on it yet, but I just wanted to make that known because we've heard that from a number of people that they fall between the cracks with these programs, and we need to continue to hear that so that we can advocate to government to make changes.
I just wanted to mention too, and you jogged my memory, Acacia, we have a Excel template for the 10% wage subsidy as well. So if anyone is wanting that, they just need to get a hold of us and we'll send that over to them too, so that will automatically calculate their subsidy for the 10% wage subsidy.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. I see a chat here from Judy. She would like Community Futures contact info. So we'll make sure that everybody gets that when we send everything out at the end. Seeing as there's no more questions, I think that we're probably done. Blair, Julie, was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, thanks a lot for having us. Definitely would like to do it again. We'll be watching to see if any more programs are announced in the coming days and weeks ahead. And I hope everyone is staying safe and hanging tight as far as business owners goes, because we definitely feel for them right now. It's such a challenging time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that these sessions will be really important as people realize what programs will work for them and which ones won't. So I think we look forward to hosting you guys again. So just like every other Chamber event, I'd like to thank the Chamber corporate partners, Abbott Wealth Management, Excel Personnel, Chambers of Commerce Group Insurance Plan, MNP Accounting, Consulting and Tax, and the Trans Mountain Corporation. Thank you to Blair and Julie and Carmen from Community Futures for joining us today. And thank you for attending. I hope you learned something a lot. I know I took tons of notes and got my questions answered, so it was valuable for me. But yeah, thanks everyone and have a great day.
Great, thanks Acacia.
Thanks Acacia, thanks Deanna.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks Deanna.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.